Yes, sir. Hey, yo. That is an awesome table full of parts. And with all these parts, the turbo build for the V6 Accord officially begins. But you might be asking yourself, what are all of these parts? So real quickly, let me go over everything. Of course, the main attraction is the Pulsar 5455G dual ball bearing turbocharger. Pulsar makes very high quality turbos at very fair prices. This thing's going to rip, and it should be sized perfectly to give us a very responsive 400 horsepower. Then to go with that, we have Pulsar's external wastegate. Not necessary for this power level, but what's better than a quiet exhaust with an external wastegate? Everything besides that is from P2R, Power Rev Racing. P2R are the J-Series gods. What we have here, I don't even know where to start. I guess we can start with the basic stuff. We've got a performance timing belt kit and thermal gaskets to reduce those intake air temperatures. We have dress-up bolts and clear cam covers to make it look cooler, along with a bunch of billet parts. We have their plug-and-play billet fuel rail kits right here. We have their billet manual timing belt tensioner, and then their manifold starters, which are pieces of metal that you can use to make a turbo kit with. And then in addition to that, PTR also helped provide fuel injectors for this thing. Some 700cc fuel injectors from Fuel Injector Clinic. And of course, guys, if you have a J-Series or a Honda, check out Power Rev Racing. They sent all this out for the Accord. They even put my logo on their box. Freaking awesome. I've never had a company do that, so I'm so honored to be working with P2R on this project. And then of course, if you need a turbo, check out Pulsar. And so that's what this video is all about. Obviously, we have to fabricate the turbo kit. We have to, make the cold side, the intercooler piping, get the turbo air into the engine. We also have to make an exhaust. But before we can do any of that, we have to get the J-Series ready for the horsepower. This thing has 200,000 miles on it. And the goal is to make it not blow up, and so that's why we're doing some upgrades and some maintenance. But that's not all we're gonna do. We're going to make this engine look awesome, because right now it looks like a stock J-Series that makes 250 horsepower. So during the process of overhauling the engine, every part we take off, we're gonna clean, we're gonna paint, maybe powder coat, and we're gonna get this thing looking right. But before we start disassembling the engine and bolting some of these fancy parts on, we first gotta clean it. Well, it's not perfect, but compared to what it used to look like, this engine bay is much cleaner. And now it's gonna be a little bit nicer to work on, so we can begin. We gotta get this engine dang close to fully disassembled. We're doing the timing belt and water pump, so the entire front of the engine has gotta come apart. We're doing the intake manifold gaskets, valve cover gaskets, so the entire top of the engine has to come apart. And we have to drill and tap the oil pan for a turbo return line. So the bottom of the engine has to come apart. Pretty much everything around the actual long block coming apart. I guess we just get started. So this right here is where one of the thermal gaskets is gonna go. I'm not gonna do that yet, however. For now, I'm gonna tape this up so we don't drop anything into the engine. As much as I'd love to continue with the top and remove the valve covers, I think that's a kind of silly idea, because then I'm gonna have an open engine when I do everything else. So let's go ahead and focus on the front of the engine now. First thing to do is to get the power steering pump off and the motor mount out, and then we can start disassembling the timing covers. See how this goes. That's what I thought. I'm gonna need some more power. That's crazy how much power this thing's got. Clearly the radiator did not drain out much coolant, and clearly that bucket did not catch much coolant.
Today I'm going to show you guys how to install the P2R Performance Timing Belt Kit on a Honda J Series engine.
Yeah, I got the belt installed, I just don't know how tight to make the tensioner here. Okay, so I guess I just kind of eyeball it. See what's under this. If it's anything like the intake manifold, it ain't gonna look too good. This particular Honda, I think, missed an oil change or few, let's just put it that way. Definitely missed an oil change or few. So now we have both valve covers off, and then all the timing stuff reassembled besides the covers. And so at this point, it's time for a little bit of a makeover, because now we have to reassemble things and we want to paint the parts before we reassemble them. Now, I'm gonna do this DIY at home, but with really awesome results. To show you guys that it's possible to make your engine look awesome without powder coating everything, which can get very expensive and also take a lot of time. Powder coating places are usually pretty backed up, so we don't want to do that with this. We're going to do the valve covers, intake manifold, motor mount block thing, and a couple of just trim pieces. And we're gonna do all of that wrinkle black. Doing it with VHT's Wrinkle Plus. This stuff can be a pain in the butt to use and be really just not work very well, unless if you know the tricks. But before I tell you those, we gotta prep everything. pieces that we are going to be painting are now prepped, sanded and cleaned, looking very nice. If you want a good result, this is a super important step, because if you don't sand it, if you don't get all the little cracks and crevices, paint's gonna chip after a little bit. If you don't want it to last, you don't have to do this, but if you want it to last, put some effort into this stuff. Now, we're gonna take these home where I have an oven, and that is the key. So you wanna preheat your oven to 200 degrees. Warning, this is going to smell up your entire house of paint for one night, so be prepared. Axel! Gonna give this one more clean here. All right, you wanna really shake this stuff up. So after you shake it up, we're gonna do 3 heavy layers. I've never had this stuff run. I'm sure it's possible, but don't be too scared of it. It's not like clear coat. First layer we're gonna do horizontally. The way you get an even finish is to make sure you lay an even coat. And that's why you do it heavy, is because it's easy to get a heavy, even coat. So if you see any light spots, just kind of add a little bit more paint. In between each coat, wait 5 minutes. The second layer we're gonna do at a 90-degree angle, so we're gonna go kind of down this way. I find it useful to go over it with a flashlight afterwards to make sure it's got a relatively unanimous finish and I didn't miss anything. Another 5 minutes. Third and final coat we're gonna do at a 45-degree angle. This is obviously more applicable to something that is flat. The point is you get 3 layers, even coverage, thick coverage. So now I'm gonna let it sit out here for 20 minutes in just the atmosphere, normal temperature. Okay, and we're gonna put it in here for 1 hour. And now, that's what actually does the wrinkling. Way to make it work and find another route. And so this is what the parts look like after being in the oven for an hour and then sitting overnight. Not perfect. I actually think I went too heavy and, you know, it is what it is. But it does look pretty good. One last finishing touch we're gonna do on the Honda. I'm gonna grind the paint off of the Honda. There we go. I think that's a nice finishing touch. And if you compare it to like the drift truck's powder coated wrinkle black valve covers, I think it's pretty good, it's pretty close. From camera, from, you know, a couple feet away, you don't really notice a difference. Up close, you can kind of see the slight tiger striping, the slight unevenness. Daily driver, it's fine, we'll be okay. Now before we reassemble stuff, there's one more thing we have to do. That is a valve lash adjustment. So every time you do a timing belt on these things, you're supposed to adjust the valves. It's a 4 valve per cylinder, so there's 2 intake, 2 exhaust, and each one has a little adjustment screw. So you're supposed to measure it with a feeler gauge and adjust it to spec. I measured a couple and they're just slightly loose. So we're gonna tighten it all up. Should quiet up the motor and maybe give us a horsepower or 2. So we've made some awesome progress, got a lot of stuff reassembled, and then we got all these billet P2R block off plates, making the engine look real nice. If we were about to be able to put our tune in and do all that, then we could swap the fuel rails and the injectors, but we're not about to do that. So for now, we're going to leave all the stock stuff there, but we're gonna put our new thermal gasket in, plus that thing is reusable, so when we have to take the intake manifold off again, we'll be all good. So this thing is made out of like a plastic. Pretty much what it does is it prevents any direct heat transfer from the lower intake manifold. So now the only way the upper intake manifold is going to get hot is just by the actual air temperature. So this is all reassembled. Everything's ready to start. Just gotta fill it up with power steering fluid and with coolant, and I put the turbo in. It's just chilling there. I had to look at what the finished result's gonna be. This is about where the turbo's gonna be. Who knows if it's gonna point this way or that way. I'm thinking I might point that way and then have the intake going back there. More induction noise for the cabin. Once you remove this battery tray, there's a whole bunch of space right here for up pipes, down pipes, wastegates, all of that. It's gonna look sick. You open the hood, you see the beautiful J Series, which is a really good looking engine. This intake manifold looks awesome with the turbo right here. I'm gonna go ahead and fill it up and we can give it a start. It's fired right up and it's running great. Just letting everything burn off. Oh yeah, look, being able to see the cam gear moving. Very cool. So we're just gonna let it reach operating temp, and then we can bleed the system and continue. It works.
That was way better, yeah.
So in order to get this oil pan off, we gotta go ahead and drop the Y pipe. And then I think that is pretty much it. Very nice indeed. So that dash 10 bung is welded onto the oil pan very nicely. It welded pretty good. Got the surface all cleaned up, got the inside all cleaned up, no more dust, no more nastiness. This is ready to go back on. I just gotta quickly clean up this mating surface and then we can finish it up. So ladies and gents, that is going to be it for this video. The J Series is now refreshed and looking awesome. It still looks like a factory engine, like there's sensors and wires and shit all over the place, which is unfortunate, but you can't really do anything about that. The wrinkle black looks awesome, and compared to the factory dirty engine bay, sheesh, this thing looks awesome. And we are 100% ready to just remove the intake, remove the exhaust, and fabricate a turbo system. And that is, of course, what we're going to do in the next video with the Accord. I cannot wait to hear this thing with this turbo. It's going to make some crazy noises with the external wastegate. The turbo has the T51R mod, so it's gonna be very spooly and whistly, and it's a V6. I've never owned a V6 turbo. I'm very excited, very excited. Huge thank you yet again to P2R and to Pulsar turbos. If you need parts for your Honda, especially your J Series, or if you need turbos, check them out in the description and up in the cards. And if you want to help support the channel, please check out Patreon. There you can get early access to videos, access to exclusive update posts, free merchandise, and at the end of every video, I answer questions and you can get your name on screen. Plus I respond to all the comments on Patreon. Lots of benefits. But speaking of which, at this point, let's answer some questions. Now I'm going to do an extra long Q&A since this is a new thing and I have a bunch of questions built up from the last video and I just want to get them all out there. George asks, are you planning on selling the drift truck after it's done? Hell no. Bryce Welch asks, will you be trying to use the dyno after all future performance changes to see how much they affect? For the EP3 build, anytime we do a part install, we'll put it on the dyno, see what happens. Paul Easter asks, would you ever consider doing a welding how-to/beginner series? No, because I'm not that great, and there are way better options out there. There's plenty of how-to weld videos on YouTube. The Alexizer asks, you plan on doing any builds with non-Japanese platforms? Yes, I do. In fact, in the future, there will be well, I'm not gonna say, but there's gonna be a car that's not a Japanese car. Jonah Lee asks, have you considered making some mountain biking content? Yes. Now, I'm never gonna be posting full mountain biking videos on this channel, but I am going to naturally integrate some mountain biking into these videos. Josh Fackler asks, can you do a vibrant TPV muffler on this? Vibrant Measurator 2? I think I was talking about the EP3. I'm hoping I'm gonna be working with Vibrant in the future. We'll see. Jake Ploach asks, out of the 4 Hondas you've owned, which has been your favorite? And I guess out of all your builds, which was your favorite? Technically, I've owned 6 Hondas. I had that EK Coupe a long time ago, 2 Fits, EP3, Accord, Honda Beat. The Accord is my favorite, and right now my least favorite is the EP3 because it doesn't work. Out of all my builds, which has been my favorite, in terms of driving, this one. Also the drift truck. The drift truck's pretty awesome too. Caught up with all the questions. If you want to ask a question for a future video, become a patron.